Hello, everyone. I'm Marilyn Krieger. On behalf of all of us from Winebow Imports, welcome to the 9th Annual Women in Wine Leadership Symposium, the WWLS. Thank you for joining us today. For the first time since 2012, we are excited to hold the event virtually for a much larger audience. We hope that through our discussions, we can raise awareness and question the status quo for a meaningful and empowering experience that inspires us to work together toward positive change for everyone. In case you did not download our symposium booklet from your Zoom reminders, you can also find it on our site, womenwineleaders.com/booklet. This contains the bios and photos of our speakers today, and on the last page, their handles on social. At any time during today's discussions, please feel free to submit your questions into the Q&A at the bottom of the control panel. We'll save some time to answer questions at the end of each session. Before we start our keynote conversation, and in the spirit of supporting education and career advancement, Michelle DeFeo, President of Champagne Laurent Perrier USA, has a brief message.
Thanks, Marilyn. The success and longevity of Champagne Laurent Perrier is inextricably linked to the efforts of many strong women who have been part of the house since its founding in 1812. Our house's history of remarkable women begins with our namesake, Mathilde Émilie Laurent Perrier. In 1887, she took control of the house when her husband, Eugène Laurent, then our owner and cellar master, died in an accident in the cellars. The house flourished under her leadership until she passed away in 1925. She then left the house to her daughter, Eugénie, who decided in 1939 to sell it to another woman, Marie-Louise Lanson de Nonancourt. To this day, Laurent Perrier is still owned and run by the de Nonancourt family, namely Alexandra and Stephanie de Nonancourt. Alexandra's daughter Lucy just joined the house officially last year, bringing another generation into the fold. Alexandra spoke at Winebow's Women in Wine Leadership Symposium in 2017. The following year, inspired by Winebow Symposium and our house's long history of strong women, I announced a scholarship program designed to support women as they pursued their wine careers through certification with the Court of Master Sommeliers. It's my pleasure to announce the winners of the second annual Champagne Laurent Perrier Women in Wine Leadership Scholarships. Carrie Callender, a former psychology professor who decided to go to culinary school and fell in love with wine, who is working on becoming a certified sommelier. Sharon Cowan, who built award-winning restaurant and wine programs and who has achieved her advanced sommelier certification this year. And Andrea Morris, an accomplished sommelier and beverage director whose restaurant career began when she was only a teenager and who's now working on becoming a master sommelier. Congratulations to you all. I'd like to thank Marilyn and everyone at Winebow for holding this symposium for the 9th time. It's never been more needed. The pandemic dramatically disrupted our industry, and each of us now is a de facto disruptive leader, meaning someone who will embrace change and use it for transformation. The wine business has long needed transformation into something more diverse in terms of race, ethnicity, privilege, gender, and beyond. And the time is right for that transformation, but it won't happen on its own. We're all responsible for taking action. To all of the wonderful women speaking today, may your insights spark many ideas on how we can all turn our industry's disruption into a force for positive change. Cheers.
Congratulations, Andrea, Sharon, and Carrie, and thank you, Michelle and Laurent Perrier, for your generosity and commitment. Without further ado, it is a great honor to introduce the moderator of our keynote conversation, Dorothy Gator, Senior Editor of The Grape Collective. Among a long list of accomplishments and awards throughout her 47-year career in journalism, Dottie, together with her husband, John Brescher, conceived and wrote the Wall Street Journal's Tastings column for 12 years, authored 4 wine books, and created the annual global celebration of wine and friendship, Open That Bottle Night. Thank you for joining us, Dottie, and for inspiring us with your knowledge and insight.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's an honor to be here and to be among such wonderful women and men too. Welcome this year. So we're going to start on the West Coast with Tanya Pitts in those great blue glasses. She is wine director at wine market restaurant in San Francisco, where her wine lists have won, one market restaurant where her wine lists have won awards and such note. She was on her way to becoming a lawyer when fate stepped in and drew her into the wine and hospitality industries. Now, 30 years later, she's giving back in so many ways and has hung out her own shingle. She's a wine consultant now. And on the East Coast with me, there's Victoria James. Victoria is, hello. Victoria is wine director and a partner at Cote Korean Steakhouse in the Flatiron District of Manhattan. It's a cool area, very cool area. And she's also co-founder of Wine Empowered, an organization that was founded to bring free education about wine to people who have felt excluded. We are here today to talk about ways to break that down, as Michelle said. Victoria was also at the age of 21, the youngest sommelier in the country working at a Michelin star restaurant. Her best-selling book, Wine Girl, is a must read. Antonia, I'm gonna bug you until you put those journals into a book. So it's just great. Let's get started. We have so much to talk about. First, I want to hear how you all are doing. We're 8 months into this. How are you all holding up?
Well, it's been interesting. It took me probably a month to sit down and get off of that treadmill of work and just kind of quiet my mind, if you would. And at that point, I kind of looked around. It's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with myself? There's never been enough time to study. Well, I'm going to study. And I did that and started thinking about, my own business and how I could do something for myself as well, because I didn't know how long we were not going to be open and operating. But in the meanwhile, I had several people from the community come to me, Dylan Proctor and Martin Reyes, and talk to me about a new project that they had called Wine Unified, which is very similar to Victoria's program with bringing education and resources to BIPOC and people of color and those that have been marginalized within our industry. And it really struck a chord with me because I've always mentored throughout my career, but it led me to remember a incident with a young man that came in with some people that were mentoring him, a young Black man, and he almost wanted nothing really to do with me. He wasn't comfortable with wine at all, but he really gravitated towards chef and cooking. And it's not that he was so enthralled with cooking, it's just that it was some place that he felt a bit more comfortable. And it really, it really reverberated through me. And I shared that story with Martin. And I said, I don't just want to mentor, I want to be on the advisory board. I would also like to be an ambassador. And that has all kind of become an avalanche within
That's great.
Batonage Forum, which I also am working with, United Sommeliers Foundation,
Mhm.
as well. And I'm just going to keep rolling and going with it, as well as my business. I've seemed to thrive within all of this.
You have. You clearly have. Is one market up and running now with on-premises dining? What's happening with the restaurant?
We are not. We are doing takeout and meal kits. We recently launched a New York Jewish style deli. It's a pop up. And again, it's something that you order, pick up, and take away. The restaurant is one of the cornerstones in San Francisco. We're going into our 28th year with being in business, and we are the foothold of the financial district. But people aren't at work. Very few people are at work and in the buildings, and everyone's working remotely. So we're having to shift our dynamics as well. But we're still here, and we'll continue to be here. But it's been very, very different, and less for me to do there
Sure.
as well. So.
Victoria, how are you doing, and how's Coach?
Yeah, hello everyone. Hi, Tonya and Dottie. It's been a whirlwind 8 months here. So I'm currently on the call from Cote Korean Steakhouse, where we have a New York City location and soon to be Miami as well. And this has certainly been the most challenging 8 months of my restaurant career. And for those of you who have read the book, you know that there has certainly been some challenges since I started in this industry when I was 13 as a greasy spoon diner waitress. But it's been very challenging. So when the pandemic hit, we switched right away to delivery. We were one of the first restaurants to do so. In fact, we never actually closed. And our proprietor, Simon Kim, wanted to do that because he wanted to keep our entire management staff on and not furlough them, have them be paid. And he also wanted to give supplemental income to the line level employees that we had to lay off. So for a full month, he also was able to send them money as well, even though they were laid off. How is that possible? Well, Simon's a genius, but it meant that we also had to work quite a lot. And as you know, those who are watching here, I'm sure you all remember what it was like in regards to March and April in New York City. It was pretty intense. It was not exactly the happiest of times. It was pretty gloomy, but we really pushed through. And then in July, we were able to offer outdoor dining, and we also do nationwide shipping now via Goldbelly for our steaks. And we're also doing 25% indoor dining now. So there's finally a light at the end of the tunnel, but I certainly would not be able to be here without this incredible team that we've had at the restaurant. So it's been a challenge, but we've pulled through.
When we were preparing to do this, you mentioned that you'd learned a lot about humanity, Victoria. That while you were trying and working hard to keep Cote open and paying people, that there were other people who thought that just by being open, your restaurant was a menace to public health. How do you balance that kind of? I hope that sentiment is in the past, that you're not hearing that anymore. But
yeah,
what pieces of humanity did you see that surprised you?
Yeah, I think, this pandemic, we definitely saw, or I learned that it sort of made people more of who they already were. And it was interesting, a lot of restaurants, even in the early days in March and April, were coming under fire for being open for delivery and takeout. But in the capacity, we were the same as grocery stores. We were providing food to guests to go, and we were being as safe as possible. And, the question I had for a lot of these people was, well, who will take care of our staff? We're trying to provide jobs to people that really need them, and that might not be able to achieve unemployment. So how do we win? Our government was not stepping in and helping our our employees, so who will? And so for us, our team comes first and foremost. We made sure that they were all very safe. We made sure that we were routinely tested, and we were providing a safe and healthy environment. But more so than anything, our team needs income and they need a livelihood. And if we weren't going to provide that for them, then who was?
Now, at the same time that the pandemic is happening, there's been renewed attention to racial injustice and racism, and also the Me Too movement is still unveiling systemic sexism. And now ageism is an issue that we're dealing with. We're going to talk about each of those separately. But first, racism. I'm 69. I grew up in the segregated South and have lived for many decades and worked among Northerners who think they're liberal. And some of them are and some of them aren't. What advice would you give to people who are in positions to make their communities and their companies more inclusive? What would you tell them to do or advise them to do? Tony, you want to take that first?
Everyone's voice needs to be heard. We are all viable human beings on this planet, and we all have something to give. The word is hospitality, and that's what we do. We are to be hospitable to everyone that comes through the door. We need to make everyone feel warm, welcome, and included. That's our job. That's what we're here for. And that's what we need to do. And that starts in the front of the house, the back of the house, also within the wine industry as well, having more opportunities for those that don't look like everyone else, women included in all of that, and being given an opportunity and a chance, because we're all out there. We've been here for a really long time. It's a conversation that we all have amongst ourselves that we don't always feel comfortable having amongst our peers, because there's always that they get it, but they don't quite get it, you know? And so, and I think that's also why we have the different organizations now that are pushing forward, that we have all come together and working as one. We all have our separate organizations, but at the end of the day, we are all trying to achieve the same goal. And we all do get together and talk once a quarter, it seems, to make sure that we're all on track and on the same page as well.
No,
And
Victoria,
that,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. Go ahead.
Victoria, your book is so full of pain because you're female and you're young. I would imagine that because of your experiences in that book, you're hearing a lot from women who've said, yeah, I've been there too. You open your book with this horrible setting of men at lunch ordering an expensive white Burgundy. And the head of the table calls you wine girl, and he accuses you of wearing perfume, as if, right? And he rejects this perfectly wonderful bottle of Burgundy just to humiliate you. Does that stuff still happen to you? And I'm going to ask you too, Tanya. Do things like that still happen to you?
Yeah, I'm sure that Tanya can definitely share a slew of stories as well here. And anyone that's watching, I mean, this is a symposium for women in wine and leadership. I'm sure we can all share, we'll be on here for hours sharing all of our stories.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully what makes us so strong is that we have this tool that's called our voice. And for so long, women in our industry were silenced or were told not to speak up, or the customer was always right. And that's changing now, but it's only changing the more we come together and the more we share these stories and use our voices. It happens all the time still, regardless of the fact that I work in a Michelin-starred restaurant, I'm the beverage director, and I'm a partner. It happens, but it also happens to other women in positions of power in all sorts of industries. So unfortunately, how do we change that? And unfortunately, sometimes that means that the responsibility falls on not just us, but fortunately, rather the whole community to come together. And we need male allies, and we need everyone to recognize that this isn't just a women's issue; it's an issue of humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And even after all this time, uh, there was a point where I didn't want to do this. I was fighting, you know, being in the wine industry and becoming a sommelier and a wine director because there wasn't anyone that really looked like me. I had people that were supportive of me and super encouraging, but for my own self, not seeing a lot of women and women of color, let alone someone, black, and even a black male for even that matter. You just didn't see that. And the higher up the echelon you went within our community, you didn't see it, you know. So it took me probably 10 years to have that moment and realize that this is what I was supposed to be doing, you know, and it's as though it was clearly a sign from the heavens, and here I am, and this is why. But even still, after all this time, I'm questioned, you know, would you please go and get the man? We'd like to see the man. Where is he? Would you send him over? When clearly my name's on the wine list, there's even a caricature of me, you know, and still, questioned.
I've often said that that the difference between what Black women and white women do in the workplace is akin to the way Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire danced, that Black women did it backwards and in high heels.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was just exponentially more difficult because people did question our ability to do it.
Yeah.
Now-
And as Victoria said, it's not just in our industry, it's across the board. We are looked at as being less than. We get paid less and we can go down the scale, on that one. Racially, everybody makes a different amount of money. It it's actually pretty horrible when you think about it. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
advice would you give people who are underrepresented in these industries who want to get into it? What advice would you give them?
Keep pushing, don't give up, and you're supposed to be here. It's your right to be here. If you have a passion and a calling, go for it. If there's someone that you admire, reach out to them. 9 times out of 10, you will find that that person can give you some advice and will probably give you some of their time. But the wonderful thing about what's going on right now is that those sorts of opportunities and services are almost everywhere now, whereas we didn't have that before. Myself, it was different for me because I did have people around me that nurtured me, that did mentor me. But I hear stories from other individuals that didn't have that at all. They didn't have the support. They were just kind of really winging it. But now there's opportunity there. And I think that there are those of us that are in this community that are going to make sure that that continues. We're pushing for it. Yeah.
Now, Victoria, at Coat, you not only have support, but you also have a zero tolerance policy for harassment. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we're so lucky now to have in the industry people like Tonya that are incredible mentors and so loving. And, this was, for me growing up, I didn't have a lot of mentors. I wish I knew Tonya sooner in the industry. And it was really hard. And I felt like I was a lamb being thrown into this den of wolves. And, I think at Coat, when I finally had a position of power and I was able to influence and create change, I really thought it was important to protect our staff, notably women, especially. because I never felt the places I worked that women were protected. And it's sort of this dichotomy, right? Because a lot of these places want to hire, maybe cute young girls and put them in these positions where they're especially vulnerable, where they're bartenders and hosts, and they're asked to dress a certain way or act a certain way. And yet, for some reason, whenever there's a complaint or any sort of abuse or harassment, the management looks the other way. And why is that? That's exploiting these women. So I'm so firmly against that. And at Coat here, we're so lucky that we have a great team. Of course, Simon Kim, the owner, but we also have our general manager and partner here, Amy Zhou, who is a young woman as well. She became a sommelier in Shanghai when she was 19, having me beat by quite a few years here in the US. And she came to New York and really wanted to continue her sommelier career, quickly finding that no one would hire her for this role. And so she got into management. She went to NYU to study management. And then she met Tom Brown, our vice president of operations here, who she had worked with previously at Be Our Guest. He hired her as our general manager, and she came up with this really great no tolerance on harassment policy. Before it had already existed, but she came up with one that was color coded, which was very important to us. And so if a customer ever makes them feel uncomfortable, anyone on our staff, they just call a code blue. And what that means is instantly, it's a sort of an SOS. They say it to a person in management, code blue. And if instantly they're taken out of that situation, a manager goes into that situation right away, assesses what's happening and how best to handle it. But first and foremost, the person's protected, they're taken out. And from there, there's a color-coded system of red, yellow, and orange if we are de-escalating. So for example, if it's a code blue because they were uncomfortable because the guest was maybe a little sloppy, not harassment, but they just didn't really feel comfortable handling them anymore. So that's a yellow, a de-escalation. It involves the management to get them water, maybe call them a cab, stop serving them alcohol, so on and so forth. Now, if it's a red, that means that there was some sort of either verbal or physical harassment. Which is completely not tolerable, especially against protected classes. And that means the guest is invited to leave the restaurant right away and that they're not welcome back ever. And that's really important because when your staff feels safe, they perform better. And also, these guests that are problematic are not that common, but they do happen. And the more that you weed them out, the more sort of the garden can grow and flourish. And the name of our restaurant, Coat, means flower in Korean. And so we're all about growing and flourishing. And we can't have any of these bad weeds in the garden.
That's a great idea. Are other people picking up on that? Other restaurants? Have you ever heard of anyone else doing that? That's a really, you have to protect the people who work for you. What if the harassers are fellow employees? What happens then?
Same system. First and foremost, everyone's removed from the situation in which they don't feel safe. That's incredibly important. After that, every restaurant should have an HR department. It's the most important thing you can do financially. You need to investigate thoroughly. You need to give, we're not going to have a culture where someone can just say something and then someone's instantly kicked out of the team. That would be chaos, right? That would be anarchy. But everything's taken seriously. We investigate very thoroughly. And situations like that have happened before, and we should talk about it. It's an uncomfortable subject for many, but I think it's an important discussion to have. No harassment is allowed from coworkers, from guests, anywhere. It's just not tolerated.
It's wonderful. Now let's get to ageism. Tonya, you said that that's a topic that doesn't get the attention that it deserves. How are you seeing that play out? But Victoria just talked about restaurants wanting cute young things in these jobs that leave them vulnerable. How are you seeing this?
For the mature and experienced restaurant person, women in particular, we are seen as, once we get to be a certain age, I've had people ask me, wow, you're still on the floor? Why are you still on the floor? I mean, I'm like, well, what do you mean, why am I still on the floor? I'm on the floor because I love being on the floor. It's my profession. I'm a wine director. I am a sommelier. But, you know, it's different for men. They can just gracefully, you know, get gray and still be there and still have a job. You know, I think for us as women, we have to then create opportunities for ourselves, i.e., me opening up my own consulting company. That could also be someone, a woman opening up her own restaurant, wine bar, starting an import export company, all of these other things, tourism, just thinking outside of the box. We've been pushed into having to do that. And it's the same, you know, on the winery side as well. People are not looked at as being viable still once they become a certain age. They're almost kind of sent out to pasture, if you would.
But it's so many cultures. Elderly people are venerated. Victoria, you said that the best advice you've ever received is have friends across multiple generations. You know, we started this by saying that everyone has something that they can bring to the table. It just it seems like that's a big one that also needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Because age means experience. If you're still standing, you have wisdom and talent. If you're still standing, that just doesn't seem very wise to discount.
Well, we're working on that one. And I've actually, this is this will be the fourth year for Batonage Forum. And it wasn't planned, but in my panel talk the first year, I brought it up. And I brought it up again this past year. And I had women the first year come up and speak to me afterwards, and you know, were even older than myself. And I'm 53 and a young 53, because most people would never know that, you know, at all. But because I've been in the industry for so long, people start doing and running the numbers. It's like, well, when did you get started? When you were 2, you know, you get, you know, comments like that, yeah, as well. And it's like, no, I got started at a young age, but yes, I've been in this industry for quite a while, and I always have to push that issue also, because it's almost as though I have to prove myself that I'm supposed to be here and that I'm knowledgeable enough or that I'm good enough to be here. But the ageism thing, it's something that needs to be talked about, and it's going to continue to be talked about. And behind closed doors, we are talking about, and we're trying to figure out how to fix it, those of us that are of age, because we are the women elders, and that's the next panel talk for somebody out there. The women elders, because that's what we are.
40 over 40, 50 over 50.
That's right.
I like that. I like that. But at the same time, we're seeing younger and younger people coming into the industry, and that can be invigorating, right? I mean, Victoria, you were a child. That your age must have worked against you on some levels. Probably people didn't think that you knew what you were talking about. So we've got to figure out a way to honor both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I think also to Tonia's point as well, you know, whenever I hear women that are my age or even younger that say things that are unkind or discriminatory towards people that are older, especially older women, I'm like, what are you doing? This is going to be you in a few years.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah.
you're not setting yourself up for success. And, you know, and I think Dottie will talk about this later, but sometimes women can be the biggest barrier to other women, which is really disheartening. And, you know, I think that, yeah, we need to have a panel just featuring the women elders. And I think my generation, you know, myself included, we should do a lot less talking, a lot more listening for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the way to do things. That's how you learn. That's how you don't make mistakes. but we're all human and we think that we have all the answers.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about mentoring. Uh, you both have had female and male mentors, and I imagine they're good and bad in both camps. What did the good ones have in common?
The good ones for me were they saw something in me that I didn't see. I was just being myself. I was inquisitive. I was passionate. I'd found something that, I really liked. I saw restaurants as being a means to make a living and to support myself while I was at university. It was never something that I thought of as, going into as a profession. But I had two females in particular once I moved to San Francisco that, just immediately saw something in me and took me under their wing and just really nourished me and groomed me, unbeknownst to me, especially when I got to San Francisco and was working at Zuni. Sylvie Lau, who was the first female sommelier I had ever uh, worked with or had known. And she was a wine director and she was fiery and smart and just, she pretty much hired me on the spot. And then when I went to work for Loretta Keller at Bisou Restaurant, and I'd met Loretta when I worked at Stars with Jeremiah Tower, and it was Loretta who said, "You're not supposed to be a captain. You're supposed to be a sommelier. That is what you're supposed to be doing." And basically gave me the program. And that's how I got started with that. And that's a form of mentoring. It's trial by fire, but she knew I could do it. It was me who just wasn't sure if I could do it or if I wanted to do it because of representation and not seeing enough people that like me. Being the only one in the room, the isolation, you know. It's gotten a lot better, because there are more people of color, not just Black people, but people of color, all kinds of people, which is great. And also women as well. But it was tough. But I think that's also why I've decided to really give back and mentor the way that I do. And I've done it for many years, but now there's more of a push. I think of mentorship as being these bite-sized pieces, a, a piece of thread, if you would, that are woven within a ribbon and they all connect to one another. And it could be just a phrase or a word or a quick conversation that you have with someone. And that's a form of mentoring. I think sometimes people believe that mentoring is this long drawn out thing that you have someone in your life and the life of your career for the entirety of the career. People show up and pop up within your career the way that they are supposed to mentor and nurture you, and people need to pay attention to that.
But it is unfortunate that sometimes women see each other as enemies, that we're
Oh
all
yeah.
fighting over this small piece of pie instead of, as Gloria Steinem said, we need a bigger pie, we need a new pie, but we fight each other over crumbs.
And as I have my feminist mug this morning with my tea, it's there's enough room for all of us. We all have so many gifts to share. It's not needed. And all you can do is lead by example and talk about it and be vocal, which is what we're doing today, which is what we do always. There are those of us that always have something to say, you know. Just like Jesus, people probably get tired of hearing my voice and
Well,
sound like a broken record.
No, never a broken record. Never a broken record. And I love vinyl, so don't go there.
Oh, me too.
Victoria, Wine Empowered grew out of your teaching staff at Coat, and you started it. You founded it with women there. Have you found that there was a great need, that there was a tapped, that allowing women to come together and feel safe and ask questions about wine, has that been a very welcome thing?
Yeah, Dottie, I think that some of the best mentors I've had, they have all had in common the fact that they didn't really do the work for me. They gave me a safe place to grow, and they challenged me to find the answers for myself. But when we started Coat here, I noticed that there were a lot of people that had the same drive and curiosity, but they didn't have that access. And so a lot of people were interested in wine, but wine classes are very expensive. And when you walk into the room as a woman, or if you're a Black, Indigenous persons of color, you don't feel necessarily welcome. I know growing up in the wine industry, I didn't feel welcome as a young woman. And I know so many people have a much more harder time than I do. So we started here at Coat, free wine class for everyone who worked in the team. We called it Coat College, nicknamed it. And it was free to everyone. So everyone from dishwashers, bussers, hosts, servers signed up. And I thought that when people had more wine education, it would lead to a better sense of community and, of course, better sales and knowledge. But what I didn't expect is that it really empowered these individuals. We saw bussers become servers, become managers, become sommeliers. And it was astonishing to see what happened when you gave someone a little bit of information and access, and how it empowered them to really build their careers. And so I was talking with Amy Zoe, our general manager here, and then Cynthia Chang, who's also a sommelier and now heads our HR, all female sommeliers. And we were talking and discussing and realized that this was the missing key, the missing link, that this free education is what will help change the community, what will transform the pale, male, and stale, wine community into something that's really innovative and diverse and inclusive. And so we three co-founded Wine Empowered, and this was back in 2018. Me Too was just starting to happen, really, kind of, not really for the wine world yet. And this was before, unfortunately, a lot of conversations were centered around other marginalized groups. So it was something that we really realized we needed. And I'm so happy to see that there are many different initiatives now, that it's not just us that are really focused on this, because Wine Empowered is great, but we certainly can't do it alone. And the more organizations like this, the more these organizations band together for this cause, the better and more innovative the industry will be.
Wine Unified just awarded 12 welcome awards to people who are just getting started, which is a wonderful thing. And the Urban Grape in Boston just announced 2 scholars who are going to go through programs that will bring them into the hospitality industry. It's great to see these things happening all over. If we can just keep them going and build.
And I want to give a shout out to the Roots Fund as well, because they are making strides in viticulture. And so they have interns that are working in Napa and in Oregon right now, and helping with harvest and helping in the cellars, and which that's another place where women and people of color are not greatly represented. I think there's only 10% female winemakers in the country. That's a very, 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 very low amount, and which is why I've always had my Women in Wine initiative as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, we talk about role models and how people coming in are looking at you all and thinking, I want to be like them. How do you all take care of yourselves? How do you find balance? There's
Well,
the organization a balanced glass that speaks to these issues. And there, Tanya, you've mentioned pen to paper, that there the things that you can do. Talk about that. How drinking less wine.
Yeah, drinking less wine.
Drinking more water.
It's our life, it's our livelihood, it's our passion, but it's all about balance. And it's not even about age. It's just about taking care of yourself and taking a break and just taking a moment to breathe and to take in all the goodness around us, because there is some good. It's not all um, doom and gloom. And the writing has really helped for me. I've always um, journaled, but even more so now. And I have to thank Victoria for that. And we had a conversation one day, and it turned into an article um, about me, and that got me writing, because I really started writing about my life in um, concise pieces, and so it was really, really wonderful. So that's my outlet has been writing, sound baths, and just trying to be out in nature as much as possible and staying grounded that way. Of course, the fires here in California have not helped with that um, at all, but when and where you can, and just resting and sleeping. Naps have become very important to me.
Victoria,
Well,
how do you do it?
I'm still trying to.
You do it.
Yeah.
That's actually my Achilles heel, balance, and I'm trying to get much better at it, especially during the last 7-8 months. I really became beyond burnt out, and I sort of had to rebuild and learn how I can make this sustainable to move forward. I think that, to Tonia's point, we all have to come out with a healthy creative outlet. And for me, it's also writing. And so many things happen during a day, and it's so chaotic in the restaurant world. It really gives me an opportunity to step back and reflect on what happened, how I reacted, why I reacted such way, why the people around me acted as such, and to kind of step back and analyze that and really make sense of the world is very helpful for me, and it helps me sleep at night and helps me make peace with how I should move forward. So that's been critical. And also getting out in nature, making that a priority on a day off, going into the woods. Here at Coates, the owner, Simon Kim, and our service director, Wesley Sun, are both Korean, and they say that the most restorative thing is called a forest bath in Korean. And it's when you literally bathe yourself in nature, and it's supposed to have these restorative qualities. And I completely agree. So I try to go hiking as much as possible, go foraging in the woods. But more than anything, just scheduling time for yourself. Otherwise, my calendar is filled from the moment I wake up until the moment I go to sleep. So scheduling time to spend with my husband and my dog, and making that a priority, just like all of these meetings as well. So I think that no one is going to make you a priority. You have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And there is I think you use the word fetishizing of working long hours. When I was a young journalist, they called us cubs. Working long hours was what we did. We were comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. We were working with purpose, but at some point you do try to find some balance, and if you don't, it can result in burnout. And we have these young people coming in, looking at us and trying to figure out how they can have everything, and you can't have everything, but we have to find ways to present a more balanced, sustainable lifestyle.
I think also what's been interesting is we've had young people come in, and their lifespan within the industry and within certain occupations and roles have gotten shorter because they've seemed to figure it out. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to work 12, 14 hours in a day.
Yeah.
You know, that's too much. I'm not having a life. It's not balanced. What else can I do within this industry to have more life work balance? And they tend to shift gears and go in a different direction. Um, and a lot of them have either gone to go work for wineries or go and work in distribution or supply chain, or start something for themselves. And I've noticed that in the last 2 years, maybe even 3 years, that's been a bit of a trend here on the West Coast as well. Have you seen that as well on the East Coast, Victoria? That people have done that? Or are they just
Yeah.
entrenched in
Yeah.
working really hard still?
I mean, I think, yeah, to your point and Dottie's, like, it is a balance. I first started in this industry, everyone was like, you're told to work these long hours, 100 hours a week, and hold it up on this pedestal, like, look how much hours I worked, I'm so cool, and to sort of fetishize it. I think there's still people doing that here, but I think it is about balance, because they come into this industry and they realize, oh yeah, this isn't really fun. Why are you doing this? This is too much. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? But I think there's again a balance, because you also don't want a lot of people coming in and being like, listen, I'm just going to work like 5 hours a week and sit back and relax. You do have to have that hustle and build your career, but you don't have to have it at a certain cost. I think there can be both. So it's different for everyone, but I think that self-care and health is so important. And for me, that change meant not going out after work, going home and going to sleep. If I'm working 60, 80 hours a week, I still want to get 10 hours of sleep a night. So that was more important to me than having a few cocktails after work.
We have some questions. This one seems really good. Glad to hear we'll be talking about Me Too and ageism. It seems we can only think about one of these issues at a time. How can we prioritize awareness and action? Anyone want to take that? Well, I'll decide.
They're both equally equally important. They all really make a difference. And the more you talk about it and speak about it, we can work towards making a change, which is how the whole thing with sexism has gone as well. It's not been a quick, fast change, but it's been steady, and it's on the up climb. I remember when I, got started years ago, my first tasting, I was the only Black woman and I was the only woman tasting. All the other ladies were in the middle of a circle, you know, talking. They weren't even tasting wine or drinking wine. So that dynamic has completely changed um, in our industry, and those women were salespeople and were in the sales department. So that's completely changed. But the ageism, it's something that we're going to work on, and I think that we're going to make pretty big strides in that because it's being talked about just as our movement is being talked about with equality and access for all. It's the next thing that's on the agenda, and we're talking about it, not just here, but amongst ourselves. And there is something else that is going to happen with that. Believe me.
Let's just blue sky it. When the wine industry and the hospitality industries come back, what do you want them to be like? What do you want them to look like and function like?
I want them to thrive. I want them to make everyone feel safe and still be warm and welcoming, because we're still the same. Things, haven't changed that way with being the anchor of your life and the anchor of your community, but we want people to come back and come and see us, and because we need to thrive. And the only way we're going to thrive is to have our clients and our customers, our community, not just our restaurant community, but our community of customers, because they are our community as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tony. I think it's twofold. It's one, we need more initiatives like this. You know, thank you, Weinbo, for putting this on, and thank you
Yeah.
for putting together a panel of women from different walks of life and different age
Yeah.
groups. You know, I think who you give the platform to in the spotlight is really important, because other people are looking upwards and seeing, okay, well, who is here? And if it's just a bunch of, you know, a specific demographic, that's what people think success is, and it's not. And in regards to restaurants, we need to completely revamp the system, completely. I mean, it's just not sustainable. If it was sustainable, I mean, the very definition of sustainable is that if something like a pandemic hit, it would still be able to continue, you know,
Right.
but it's just not. The margins are so slim, and they've gotten progressively worse in a very short period of time. In under 2 decades, we've gone to pretty much not being able to run a restaurant unless it's a huge corporate structure with a lot of financial backing. And that kind of kills what the beauty of restaurants is. So we really need to redo the whole system. We need to write our lobbyists. We need to band together and join communities like Roar. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
To try and lobby for change, because it's just not sustainable. Otherwise, you'll walk into every restaurant and every chicken entree is going to be $60 and every bottle of wine is going to be $200. It just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. So we need some change in this blue sky world, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of love, and it's going to take a lot of working together.
Now, the United Sommelier Foundation, that helps out of work hospitality people.
Yes.
It must be filling a very important need. There are people out there, we hear all the time, people who are trying to pivot because their jobs don't exist anymore. Are you getting financial support to help people who are in financial need?
Oh my gosh. From the moment that Chris Blanchard, Master Sommelier, and Christy Norman came up with this idea for United Sommelier Foundation, I was on board with the concept and reaching out to other people and letting them know, hey, if you've been laid off or something has happened within work, here, reach out to this organization because there's some help and some relief there. And unbeknownst to me, they wanted me to help and kind of be on board, but I was just busy and had a lot going on in the midst of these 8 months. But I'm now on the board with some other really esteemed folks within our community, and the next thing is the fire relief fund. So now reaching out to those individuals, not just in California, but Oregon and Washington, that have been displaced or need some help because of the fires. And so it's pretty powerful to be able to have that outreach and to give back to your community and to really make a difference for someone. That grant is something that's paying their mortgage, paying their rent, paying their car note, paying their insurance, um, and just really keeping them afloat. And it's been really, really, really amazing. It really, really has been.
It's good that
And
it's out there.
yeah.
Here's a question for both of you. Can you give a concrete example of a time you had an experience with ageism, sexism, or racism, and how you specifically addressed it?
To think about this one.
I think I can, while Tonia's thinking, I can jump in with one. So, a few months ago at the restaurant, I hand someone the wine list and I say, please, if there's anything I can help with, let me know. And the first thing he goes, "Oh, thank you so much, sweetie. You're such a little doll." And, words mean something. He might not have meant it in a, he didn't mean to be cruel or perhaps unkind or discriminatory, but words do mean something. And at this specific time, it wasn't just me, but there was also a female server nearby, and I could tell that she was looking out the corner of her eye at how I would respond. And so people are always looking to us as leaders. So it's not just about you and your own feelings, it's about setting an example for everyone around you. And so I really felt it was my duty to say something. And so I said, "Hey, listen, sir, this is our restaurant and our space. My name is Victoria. You can call me as such." And, I was lucky in that situation. He instantly changed his tone and realized that it wasn't cool. That's not all the time what happens, but I think it's important that we empower other women to stand up and use their voices. And if there was someone else next to me, if there was another manager or our owner, proprietor, Simon, I'm sure he would have stepped in as well and said, "Hey, listen, let's call her Victoria," And so it's important for us all to stand up for one another. It shouldn't just fall on women or marginalized groups. We all have to stand up and say something. So if I were to see someone, being discriminated against, I hope I would jump in as well and stand up for them. We need to really take action and use our voices.
I have to think about it for a second because there have been quite a few. I don't always talk about it with work. I talk about it with family and other colleagues, but for me, it's when you walk up to a table and it's a woman that actually says something to you. "Oh my God, you're a woman and you're Black." I don't think I've ever had a female sommelier, much less a Black one. And it's like the response, your heart rate goes up, you start to get flesh, and what do you say? And, "Oh, well, there's a first time for everything. I'm glad you're with us tonight. I'm
Wow.
glad you could join us." And then they want to know all about your background, and they're not meaning to be disrespectful. They're just really kind of matter of fact. But it is really kind of disrespectful to come off and say it that way, like that, as soon as you approach the table, and you have to spin it. And for me, it's always humor. And that's what I do.
But there
Because
is
I'm
cost.
because I'm yeah, well, yeah, because I'm busy. I've got 5 other tables that I need to get to and go in and take care of, you know. But I say it with a smile on my face and a twinkle in my eye. And I'm not malicious when I'm saying it, you know. And you put people at ease, but you also, they kind of think about it. It's like, "Oh gosh." And then you come back and it's like, "I didn't mean to." I said, "I know, I understand. You were surprised and you hadn't experienced that. But you have now. So let's have a great time tonight."
That's amazing. And I guess that's part of what hospitality is about. People are going to make mistakes. They're going to say
Oh
stupid
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Victoria, I mean, we have to use our voices.
Yeah.
It's once your eyes have been open, keep them open.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I bet you, Dottie, that person never said that again to anyone. And I bet they really thought it's like, "Oh wow," because it kind of, it's like, "Oh wow, what did I just say?"
Mhm.
And now they think about how they speak to people, you know?
Isn't that a wonderful thing?
Yeah.
That we actually think about how we speak to each other.
Hmm.
Um, my husband is a brilliant editor and writer, and he's taught many journalists how to write. And since retiring from newspapers, he's taught people at corporations how to write. And he's just said, just across the board, I can teach people how to write, but I can't teach them character. And you know, we can't teach people empathy either, but we can try.
Yeah.
Because for some people it doesn't come naturally, and we all need more of that. We do. Here's a great question. I think we have time for it. I work in a restaurant and community that is all white male except for me. I am an Asian woman. I feel that many of my colleagues are quick to dismiss discrimination against me as just being competitive. I have one knee up against that because it is dismissed. Can you give advice on that I can relate to? And can you relate to that? That when you make a complaint, people dismiss it as, oh, you're just being overly sensitive, or that's, they're not accepting your truth.
It's the same song. It's the song that we've heard for so long, and I'm so sorry that she's going through that. But don't not say anything. Keep speaking, keep talking. And the other thing is, there's HR as well, because that's a form of harassment if you're being made to feel uncomfortable that way. And that's not okay. It really is not. So, would you agree with me on that one, Victoria?
Yeah, Tonya, definitely don't ever work for a company if there isn't HR.
No.
Very important. And also, why is it that when men are competitive, it's glorified and they make TV shows out of it and movies, and it's a whole plot theme? But when women are discriminated against, it's, oh, you're being too competitive, or competitive is a negative thing. And I think it's very silly. It's a form of harassment, and it's not cool. So you should definitely bring it up to someone in charge. And if those in charge aren't listening, use your voice elsewhere, leave the company, and make your grievances heard.
Yep.
Someone has asked a question of me. I think I'm the only mother here. Would you be willing to speak about the role that parenthood plays in complicating women's career paths in the wine and hospitality industries, especially given that childcare crisis is that COVID is exacerbating? So you need to work and you have children. My kids are grown, thank goodness. I don't know what I would be doing if they were at home and I needed to homeschool them. I don't think parenthood in the wine industry is any more difficult than parenthood in any other industry.
Yeah.
I think of myself as being a member of the journalism industry first, and there are times when we tag parented. When I was a reporter, John was an editor. He was always here, but there were times when I had to be away, and I kept every little note that my kids sent me. Mommy, I miss you. When I would have to go away, I would leave them notes under their pillows and leave notes for John to give to them every day that I was away. It's just, this is a horrible, horrible situation we're in now, because where is childcare? New York City schools have opened after a fashion. I just don't know. I don't have any answers. I'm really sorry. Anyone have any ideas?
Well, for me, I decided early on, I was just pushing and working and striving in my career, and it got to be 40, and then it was like, oh, okay, I'm ready now. And my partner then was like, he had been ready for several years, and I wasn't, and it was too late, you know. And I decided not to, and because I knew that it was going to be so difficult and so hard to do my job and push in my career if I had had children. The late nights, working until, midnight, 1 in the morning, not conducive to having children and having a traditional um, family. But in this instance, being in COVID and in the pandemic still, if you do have a partner, you are going to have to partner off. You're going to have to take turns, and it's still going to be very stressful, and that's where the life balance comes in. You have to do something to balance so that you don't lose your mind, and it's just really very frustrating. It is, but you're going to have to partner off. And there's also family. Hopefully there's some family that's there with you as well, and family can help. um, yeah, that's the best thing, because I think childcare, not all childcare is open yet either. I know here in California, in San Francisco, they're just getting started with childcare. And in San Francisco, they haven't gone back to school yet, but I know they have in several other counties, but not full days yet. They're still zooming.
It's
So
difficult. It really is difficult.
yeah,
Yeah, it's why we need more women in positions of power so that there is that empathy and understanding, and we can start to change
yeah,
the rules and the laws. And again, it's a whole reworking of the restaurant wine industry and how it's structured, and it's just not sustainable for those with families as is right now, and that needs to change, because that's the fabric of our society. They do it in France. They have local daycares that are free, and so I don't know what that entails, but it's quite a lot, and it certainly needs to change.
And childcare isn't a women's issue. It's a workplace issue. It's a family issue.
yeah.
It's all of our issues. We have to go soon, but I wanna thank you all for being here. People have asked me if I'm optimistic about the future, and I am, primarily because I'm a parent. If you have kids, you do believe in tomorrow, and sometimes things have to break so that they can be rebuilt better. And I think maybe this is one of those points in our collective history, in the history of the world, where kind people, wise people, empathetic people can come together and work on this and make everything better. We have to. Thank you.
It's happening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me today.
Okay. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, thank you. Thank you,
Hi,
Dottie,
Marilyn.
Tonya, and Victoria for such an important, thought-provoking conversation. We're going to take a short break before our sustainability panel at 2:30. Please leave your Zoom open, and we'll have a slideshow on the screen in the meantime. We look forward to seeing you shortly. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second portion of Winebow Import's 9th annual Women in Wine Leadership Symposium, and thank you for joining us. Throughout the discussion, please feel free to submit questions into the Q&A at the bottom of the control panel. We'll save some time to answer questions near the end of the session. If we don't get to your question, we'll do our best to get back to you in an email. I am thrilled and honored to introduce the moderator of our panel, Sandra Taylor, founder, president, and CEO of Sustainable Business International. Her extensive and accomplished career includes holding leadership positions at top-tier organizations, including Starbucks as Senior Vice President of Global Corporate Responsibility, and Kodak, where she led global government relations, foreign trade policy, and corporate citizenship. Having studied wine for many years, Sandra is a graduate of the Wine MBA program at the Bordeaux School of Management in France and the author of The Business of Sustainable Wine, published in 2017. Thank you, Sandra, for your contributions to our industry and beyond, and for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. It's really a pleasure to be with you again. I was with Winebo in 2018 for this wonderful program. Before we begin our panel discussion, I'd like to give you a definition of sustainability because it can be a complex concept. Sustainability has been defined in many ways, but the most frequently quoted definition is from a UN conference report in 1987. And that definition is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So sustainability presumes that resources are finite and should be used conservatively and wisely with a view to long-term priorities and consequences of the ways in which resources are used. In its simplest terms, sustainability is about our children and our grandchildren and the world we leave them. Typically, when we use the term sustainability, we think of avoiding the depletion of natural resources and protecting the natural environment. But it is much more than that. We also need to protect social and economic resources. So let's just define for now that our definition of sustainability is the integration of environmental health, social equity, and economic vitality in order to create a thriving, healthy, diverse, and resilient communities for this generation and generations to come. Our panel will share their work across several aspects of sustainability in the wine industry: biodiversity, climate change, and social responsibility. But before we jump into our conversation, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. So let's start with Belen.
Well, hello. Thank you for the invitation to this year's symposium. My name is Belen Diácono. I work in the Catena Zapata winery from Mendoza, Argentina. And that is a family-owned winery, very traditional from Mendoza. Our leader now is Laura Catena, the fourth generation of the family. And I am the chief agronomist of Adriana Vineyard and some other vineyards the family has in Tupungato. And I am also leading the sustainability program of the vineyards.
Thank you. Giulia.
Hi, everybody. I'm Giulia Migliorati from Valle Reale Winery. Valle Reale is in Abruzzo, in central Italy. And I'm the export manager of the winery. As maybe everybody already know, Valle Reale is actually not only in central Italy, but in a national park, in Abruzzo National Park.
And Heather?
Hi, my name's Heather Fraser. I'm the winemaker and laboratory manager here for Yalumba and Hillsmith Family Vineyards, based in the Barossa Valley of South Australia. So Yalumba is a sixth-generation family-owned wine company where we've just celebrated our 170th anniversary.
Thank you. And finally, Andrea.
Hello, hello, hola everyone. I'm Andrea Leon. I'm a winemaker and a viticulture and the technical director for L'Apostol and Cloja Balta. We're based in Colchagua Valley in Chile. I've been with the Marnier L'Apostol family for 15 years now. We're celebrating our 21st vintage this 2021. And thank you for having us. I'm very excited to share this panel with all these ladies from all over the world.
Thank you. So let's start our conversation about sustainability with biodiversity and conservation. You saw some great images during the slideshow that represents biodiversity on a number of the wineries. So Giulia, let's start with you. Valle Reale is located inside a national park in Abruzzo. So you have very different regulations than some of the other winemakers. Your conservation is tied to biodiversity and being stewards of the land to the umpteenth degree. Can you share a little bit about your practices? And also, was going biodynamic a decision that was influenced by your location?
Sure. So as you said correctly, we are in a national park. So we are in a national park since our foundation in 1999. And this means, of course, that we are very limited, very regulated in the practices that we can do to the fields. So we are regulated both in terms of quantity and quality of treatments that we can do to the vines. Actually, the request from the park, they go beyond the organic certification, for example, because of course they only ask for organic treatments, but also they regulate how many of these organic treatments and how many times per year we can apply to the vines. Imagine also that we are over one of the main source of water of central Italy. Actually, is called the Valle Reale because Valle Reale is the name of the place, not the name only of the winery. And this source of water just goes just beyond, above, sorry, our vines. So of course, any excess of any treatments that we would do eventually to the vine will pollute the source of water. And this water is bottled for human consumption just 3 kilometers after our winery. So this to say that everything that we do is very much controlled and we have to be very careful. Also, a few years ago, we decided actually to go beyond this and actually to convert the entire estate to biodynamic. So we went from organic to biodynamic. We decided to do so because we really think that it's important to preserve our beautiful and uncontaminated environment, first of all. And as maybe everybody knows, biodynamic agriculture doesn't do any treatments to the vines. So of course, even organic, if not in a very small quantities. So this is very important to preserve our beautiful nature. And also we saw that this was perfect for us because we only work with native varietals. So native varietals, of course, that are used to be in this land since many centuries are very able to carry the grape and maturation without really much help. Just a little mention because everybody keeps asking me about the wolf. And the wolf is also on our label, on every Valle Reale label. And this because we supported a repopulation program of the Marsican wolf, which is a subspecies of the native Apennine wolf, Italian wolf. This was 10 years ago because the wolf was going to disappear due to hunting, and we helped actually this repopulation program, and now we have 300 wolves.
Great. So it's both waste management, water, conservation, and wildlife protection. So that's quite a diverse approach to biodiversity. So Belen, can you share your approach to biodiversity and how the Catena Institute of Wine has worked on this as well?
Well, yes, the Catena Institute of Wine was founded in 1995 by Laura Catena. And the purpose of the Institute is science to protect nature and culture. So we've been working on different aspects of the vineyards and the winemaking. And you can check all this on the website of the Catena Institute of Wine because most of the research is available there. But since some years, we've been working a lot on the ecosystem services. That's our main approach to biodiversity. And most of the study has been done in the Adriana vineyard because it's a very important vineyard for us. We get our parcel wines from there. So basically it's nature that is expressing in the wines. So we want to keep this ecosystem alive and sustainable. The concept of ecosystem services is very important because it's basically nature giving you solutions. So sometimes when you study, sometimes you need to preserve them, sometimes you need to restore them. But at the end, you will need less inputs in the vineyards like fertilizers or pesticides to keep a healthy ecosystem. So the first study we did was on soil microbes. And what we find out is that we have some bacteria in our soils that lives in the roots of the vines. And it helps the plant to consume, basically to consume less water, okay? And another result of this research is that you get higher terpene levels in the grapes and in the leaves of the vines. And terpenes are like a natural defense of the plant on microbial attack. So this is very important. So if you keep your soils alive and healthy, and if you protect these little microorganisms, you will use less water and you will use less pesticides, okay? So when we learned about this, we decided to go on organic farming. And for us, organic farming, I know is very controversial, but in our dry conditions, we don't need to use a lot of copper, of sulfur, so we don't have that impact that spraying might have, in order to protect these microorganisms. Then we started to study some other systems, ecosystem services like pollinators that help us to have the biodiversity of native plants we have in the vineyard that could potentially be used as adaptive cover crops, but they also act as shelter for birds and for animals and for beneficial insects in the vineyard. And we also studied birds. We are trying to bring the birds that eat insects, not the berries, but the ones that eat insects to the vineyard, because they are helping us to get to eat the insect that could be potentially harmful for the vineyard. So at the end, studying all these ecosystem services helps you to have a more resilient ecosystem that will last many years.
Thank you. So you're taking a science-based approach, but I believe you indicated that the Ariana Vineyard was really, you fell in love with the Ariana Vineyard, and that's the reason why you wanted to be a winemaker in the first place. Is that right?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, I started in the winery in 2005. And my first job was to walk in the vineyard all the time, like controlling the crews that were doing their jobs. And I really fell in love with the place. It's a beautiful ecosystem surrounded in the middle of the mountain. So you have a lot of life in the vineyard. And I like to say that we are at the service of the vineyard, and that we need to keep this ecosystem working in time.
Great, thank you. So let's switch a little bit from biodiversity to climate change. We all have talk about climate change. We're concerned about what happens with climate change once we get through this crisis. And there are many aspects to climate change and unfortunately, many impacts, and for the wine industry especially. But drought is one of the main issues that many different wine regions suffer through. So both Andrea and Heather are going to talk to us about drought in their region. So Andrea, how are you dealing with drought in Chile and in your valley?
Well, that's a big, big word, right? As a wine grower and also as part of a community, water is, the base of life. So Chile makes agriculture has this crazy shape. It's like a very long and slim country. And in the middle of the country is where we grow all our produce. And it has a dry season, like Mediterranean, South-Mediterranean climate. So we normally have our last rains in September, and they begin back in our fall, which is Easter for you guys, upside down, in the South. And then, you know, all our water for all our growing season and all our activities is during that time. It's a reality in Chile and in many places in the world that the water is less available. The events are also more, there are different patterns. When you see our historical data today, it's much more erratic. You know, so that's the big shape as a country. The desert, which is part of our north of Chile, is moving south, is knocking the doors of our capital in Santiago. So it's a big issue as a country. Now moving towards Apalta, where we are. Apalta is a place which is very special on many ways. That's one of the reasons why this French family, who made wine for 7 generations, you know, landed in this corner of the world 20 years ago. And one of them was the geography. And all these small communities who live in this place. We're facing south, which is a cooler side. We have these beautiful hills that you saw in the pictures, facing the sea, who are a little bit lower. So we have all these clouds with humidity walking in the valley. So we have we're blessed and very lucky to have quite a bit more rain availability during the season. But we need to, as you say, collect these rains and also use them very wisely and very preciously. So we had basically a strategy of 3 pillars. Collect both in water reservoirs, but also in maintaining and keeping very healthy the natural creeks of our vineyards, to have these big biological corridors, which are a natural source of water and humidity for our community and for our vineyards, for the animals. So that's one side. Use it very carefully, both in irrigation. You know, we have all the technological tools that we all winemakers always talk about, but drip irrigation, and also in the winery, being very careful and recycling all that water to be used by us drinking it or in the process of winemaking. But then also dry farming. We've been working very hard on establishing a long-term program, which we started with our old vines, who are naturally able to reach the water table by going deep into the ground. That reflects in the quality of the wine later, because you'll have a wine that is more related to its place of origin. And then at the end, by viticultural practices. But along with our technical tools, I think we need to walk in the vineyard. As Belen was saying, it's so important to live here, see how the grapes are, how the people is, how the tips, the leaves, how is the vegetation in the rows, along with our, you know, other things that Heather will talk further on with the Australian experience. So we hope with those 3 pillars, and with everybody's sensitivity of the use of water, we'll be able to, you know, being here as our grapes for many more generations to come.
Great. Thanks for reminding us too that sometimes these conditions lead to an even better tasting wine. So thank you for that. So Heather, I'd love for you to share with us your thoughts about climate change. Yalumba started working on drought many years ago, but what has Yalumba been doing over the years to adapt to climate change and other effects of climate change beyond just drought?
Yep, absolutely. So obviously, like Andrea, our region is water is a scarcity, and as such, we've had to develop and really establish what works in different sites and different regions within our community. So we've been looking at things like mulching where possible to really engage and maintain any bits of water that we do get. Through our nursery, we do a lot of work with establishing the drought tolerant rootstocks, using a lot of that for replanting, and also really about clonal and site selection, is putting the right varieties in the right locations that are going to allow us to make some great wines from great locations, and really just take advantage of what we've got and the climates we're going into through our replanting program. We also look at, we also are looking at, and I'll talk about it probably a little bit more later, is with our mid-rows, is getting those cover crops really being water or less water users, so they're non-competitive. And often that may involve using the native species of the regions that have been growing for thousands of years without requiring any sort of additional water, whilst giving back some more of that carbon to the soils and all of that type of extra bonuses that we get from our vineyards.
Well, and the owners of Yalamba have also been very committed to leaving land available uncultivated. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It really is about just putting the vineyards where the sites are suited to it, but also maintaining the lands around. Some of our vineyard sites do back onto native national parks, very similar to Juliana's scenario. But it's also about we have things like we have our insectorium program on certain sites where we're actually introducing species in areas of our vineyard that will encourage really good the biodiversity and good pests, basically to as a natural way of protecting our vineyards. So these pests will take away any or predators as such, because they will stop the vineyard from having issues that require us to go in and spray.
Yeah. So as I said at the beginning, when we talk about sustainability, we're thinking about the environment, biodiversity, these days in the wine industry, climate change, but it's also about social responsibility and commitment. So I think we maybe don't talk enough about the sensory aspects of sustainability, the beautiful landscapes that we want to preserve. Obviously, the quality and taste of the wine, and also preserving culture and heritage. Tourism is also a driving force. So now I'd like to talk to get our panelists to talk about what they're doing to give back to the community, and also to show their commitment to the community and the cultural heritage. So let's start with Belen. Catena is a family-owned company that still maintains deep roots to its origin, and really responsible for a lot of the development and growth of the wine industry in Argentina. So, and Catena still runs some very amazing programs that support the community, that support your team. So please tell us more about some of these initiatives, Belen.
Well, yes, as you say, Sandra, we have different programs. I'm going to start with the team programs. So we usually offer scholarships to our hospitality and marketing team to go on sommelier education. We also have a scholarship for train our staff in cooking and service. And most of our hospitality department are also doing some language courses, English, of course, and Portuguese, because it's very important for us. We have a lot of Brazilian visitors in the winery. Also, we have the brand ambassadors and some sales people that are doing the WSET program, also funded by the Catena family. And well, with the Catena Institute of Wine, we collaborate and we finance PhD candidates, not only from Argentina, but we also work with a lot of researchers and groups from international universities and different parts of the world. And there's one particular program that I really like, because it's for the people who is working in the vineyard, and it's for women especially. So what we observe is that during the summer, when kids are not school, the women had to stop working. So the family lost half of their salaries because women stay at home to take care of the children. So in collaboration with other wineries and producers of the Tupungato area, and also with the municipality of Tupungato. And this is great because when we collaborate, we get more impact and we get to more people. We have done this program that is a summer camp. Basically, we take the kids, they are from 5 to 15 years old. We take them all day, they learn to swim, they play sports, they have lunch there, and their mothers come back to work. So it's a way to empower women and also to have the children in a safe environment. And then with the community, we had a lot of different programs, and also in association with other producers. We are working, trying to improve the quality of life on the rural areas, and we're working a lot of sanitation and helping schools and hospitals in the Uco Valley. But there's also one program that is a school to work program, and this is very new. We started this last year because what we observe is that in the rural areas, when the kids got graduated from high school, they had to go to the urban areas to find a job, and they were not seeing vineyard work as an option. So we wanted to revalue the vineyard work, and we are working with this secondary school in Tupungato. So we bring the kids the whole year to the vineyard. It was done in the Adriana vineyard. And we ask our staff to show the day-to-day work. And then we offer an internship for the summer. So they have to prepare a resume, they go on interviews, and it's like they are being introduced to the working experience. And it's doing very well, and we hope this year we can take it to some other areas in Mendoza region.
So it's designed to help children or young people see the wine industry as potential employer, but even if they don't come to work for you, they still get to participate in the program. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have 60 persons, 60 kids in the program this year, but only 3 of them accepted the internship. And then we had the COVID pandemic that came for us in the middle of harvest. And, you know, these kids were crucial for us. Actually, it was a win-to-win because they couldn't go on with their studies because it was all stopped. And they were very important because we didn't have enough people to harvest because borders are closed, people from other provinces couldn't come. So they were very, very important for us this year. And I remember Laura telling me, hey, you should send the interns home with the pandemic. And I say, no, we really need them. So there's still one young boy that is working with us in the vineyard and that is being trained mainly in irrigation system.
Great. Wonderful. So Heather, so you are a driving force behind Yalumba's sustainability program. So what's the meaning behind your next 5 and 5 pillars, which I've read is your primary focus of your sustainability program?
Thanks, Sandra. So basically, we've been doing aspects of sustainability for many years now, but we didn't really group it together because we were focused on a lot of our environmental sustainability and credibility, and we were doing all these programs. But we thought, it should actually all be part of the one program and to really tie it in together. So being a family-owned company, we looked at it and we thought, well, there are 5 areas, so the key 5. So what are we going to do in the next 5 for the next 5 generations? So what can we do in the next 5 years and 5 key pillars? So it kind of all made sense to call it the next 5. And it really encompasses the whole life cycle of our business and what we do, in the fact that, so the 5 key pillars focus around different areas. So the first one is our resilient terroir, that focuses obviously onto our viticultural aspect. Then we move into the viable planet, which is what can we do to basically preserve our planet, whether it's around the winery or in the vineyards or anywhere else. Then we look at the prosperous community, because not only are we, we've been in this site for 170 years, but without a thriving community, we can't, we can't go forward for the next 5 generations. And then we move into, thriving workforce. Once again, we have multi-generational people that work for Yalumba, and we believe that as part of that, we have to maintain really a really strong and healthy workforce in order to keep that going for the future. Yeah. And that leads into our last one, which is responsible governance, which really encompasses our not only just our own company, but how can we be part of the Australian wine industry and also the global wine industry? Because if we don't work together to have some sort of leadership strategies and really be involved, is we can't thrive for the next the future. So that's where our 5 key pillars come around. And there's targets within each of those that we're working towards what we can do in the short term, but also a long term, because let's face it, everything in the wine industry, nothing is done in the short term. It is all about the future.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about the past and the future, culture and tradition. And Julia, I think you have done a lot, not just to protect the land, but obviously the national parks and your vineyards and the old vines that are there, but also to preserve culture and community. It's rather unique in your area. So please tell us more about that, how you manage that.
So imagine that we are located in the inner part of Abruzzo region, where the main mountain chain are actually of this is a very unpopulated area. A few people, few villages, and the villages are very small. So of course we have a fantastic nature, fantastic environment, but on the other side there are no facilities, no infrastructure. And above all, there are no companies where people actually can go and work. So, of course, for people like me, young people that after the graduation, after high school, if they don't graduate, they need a place where to work. So, of course, the main solution is to go to main cities like Rome, for example, and to find a job there. This is not because not everybody can live in big cities. Otherwise, if everybody is there, we also need somebody in the provincial areas. And on the other side is also not good, because if everybody is leaving, there is no the possibility to actually to bring the tradition and the culture of a generation before us. So thanks to the wineries, thanks to the culture, this gives to these young people the possibility actually to stay in their hometown and work there. Like if I imagine like people like me, I graduated in Rome and I first started my job in Rome. If it was not for Vallereale, I could never come back to my origin. And this is very important, above all if we talk about wine, because wine is tradition, wine is culture, wine is telling the story that was told also from our grandfathers. So if you are not from the place and you cannot really tell this story, because you cannot really understand what we are talking about, in my opinion. I'm not the owner, but my grandfather was making wine in the area like 100 years ago. So for me, it's very easy to understand what I'm telling, what I'm the environment, the terroir, talking about the mountains. So in this sense, the role of agriculture and of viticulture, specifically in our area, is very important for this reason.
Right. So it's not just a job for them and for you. It's a real pride of place because you feel some ownership of the land and the culture. That's very warm, gives me a warm feeling. Heather, you're doing something similar at Yalumba by integrating the growers into the winery team. Is that right?
Very similar. So we believe our growers are an extension of our Yalumba family. So we do tend to include them in a lot of things. So they've been part of our Vitis program, which has been our vineyard-run sustainability program for a long time. So they've been following that, and they are basically ambassadors for our brands, because they know where their grapes go. So they are just as passionate about making great wine as we are. And as such, so on the entranceway to our clock tower here in the Barossa, at our Anguston winery, we have a board on one side of the entranceway, which is for all our long-term employees, anyone who's spent 21 years with the company. Their name and dates of employment are etched onto the wall. And on the opposite side, all of our growers, as what we call our VSOGs, very special old growers, are they're listed by either their family name or the company that they trade under. But it's part of that story, because they're passionate about our wines as much as we are. So we feel that they belong there just as much as the employees that work at the wineries. So, and that's part of it's part of our being part of our community, and as I said, taking them along for the journey. And in certain cases, we do talk about individual growers in some of our tasting notes, because they are part of the story of that wine.
Mm-hmm. Great. So, and it's good supplier relations too. So it's
absolutely
good for business. So now we're going to switch and talk about something that more recently we've talked a lot about in the wine industry, and it's something I've certainly worked on both in coffee and wine, and that's certifications. And increasingly, retailers want some validation. We've described several different certification programs. Different regions have different approaches. But retailers and customers want some validation that the wine they're selling or the wine they're buying is in fact truly sustainable. So Andrea has worked with a number of certification labels, but I'd like Andrea to tell us about Chile's rigorous sustainability certification program and how has it continued to evolve.
Thank you. Well, as a winery, we have our journey through certifications, as you said, we're always trying to validate our practices and to have a third party who will, say, yes, these guys are actually doing what they're saying to do and doing the right thing. So, well, our journey began when our founder, Alexandra Marnier, was in touch with her family in Burgundy, and she got embedded in this biodynamic philosophy. We started in '94 with conventional farming, that's the reality. So we went from 0 to 100% certified organic, biodynamic, over 350 hectares of vineyard, So in that short term of time, we had almost 36% on the world biodynamic vineyard certified here in Chile, which is huge, And at the same time, we were working in the winery with our environmental practices. I spoke about water, energy, and all that type of wine making aspects. And at the end of the day, after 20 years, under the lead of Charles de Bournay, her son, who took now is our CEO, we felt that these private certification bodies, who are a great start because they give you discipline. They make a commitment for the team. You know, you get checked very rigorously once a year. Felt a bit short to us. And why? Because what you explained at the beginning, we were working on so many different aspects of sustainability, which started with the vineyard, which is the typical definition, you know, but we were lacking really the 360 view that we were actually living. You know, we were living a sustainability was much more involved with the community, with preserving the future, with maybe fire brigades, with beekeeping, with keeping a healthy, you know, water reservoir, or many other aspects. And then we went back to what was today the Sustainability Code of Wine Chile, which is what we were looking for. It started, again, it has a 10-year-old life. It began with only the vineyard. So at the time, we felt it was more of a replacement of our organic certification, but it has grown into this multifaceted body. It's part of the cluster of the Chilean government, of the state, a tool for producers, for making sustainability part of your heart, part of the organic life of the winery and the vineyard. And it covers the vineyard, the winery, the social responsibility aspects, and now even the newly added wine tourism chapter. So as you can see, it's ever evolving. It has a due diligence, it has its own governance, so there's challenge of the nouns if you want to. It wants to have total transparency, and being owned by a French family. You know, we are quite critical when it comes to trade decisions or bodies. And I think this is something Chile has really embraced and done very well. In fact, it's been recognized by the LCBO, by the Scandinavian monopolies, you know, who do tenders only for wineries who adhere to these codes. So I think this is the future for Chile, and hopefully for many other places in the world. There's a lot of codes up there. And also the codes bring a local, you know, view. You know, we have a reality here, and we need help with the private certification. You know, at the end, it's a business. We had issues with drifting. You know, a vineyard is not alone; it's not separate, and they couldn't address those issues because they were just looking on the organic side and on the, you know, whole picture. So, well, that's a little bit of our journey, which has been a long one, and we're looking for the future.
Yeah. So despite all that, do you not include certification on your bottle, on your labels?
Well, that's a good question, and it's been discussed thoroughly. But for us, sustainability in the whole term is not a selling tool. We love wine. We are wine growers, and we may want to make the best possible wines and the most authentic wines, who really reveal the terroir, and that has the human factor in it. We always, winemakers talk about the land and the climate and all that, but we forget, we're too technical, the human soul on it. And this is this mix of this French family with the local community, with Chile. And really, it's more for a discipline, it's more to following a program, it's more to project ourselves for the next 20 years. But it's not a sales tool. We don't want to sell a sustainable wine, we want to sell a great wine, which is also sustainable. So it's going to be around for many years.
Yeah, okay. So you're available to help retailers understand your practices, but you don't believe it's required for consumers to adopt and love your wines. Sounds like
it's very hard for consumers to recognize a logo, you know, and it's an overcrowded world there, you know. I think empower the consumer, you know, that's what we need to do through the trade.
Yeah. So Belen, you also at in Bodegas de Argentina and Catena, you've really been leading the development of a sustainability protocol and certification for wines of Argentina. So tell us more about how that's going.
But actually, we started with the sustainability protocol in 2009 because we wanted a code basically for our vineyards and our wineries in Catena Zapata, but we couldn't find any that was adjust to our regional conditions. So Laura brought the Californian code for sustainable wine growing, and we got inspired on this one, and we started working to adapt it. And when it was finished, we said, okay, it's not enough that we are the only one working on sustainability in the wine industry in Argentina. So we took this draft document to Bodegas de Argentina. That is a chamber of 250 wineries from all over the country. The Sustainability Commission of Bodegas de Argentina has already been set and formed, and they accepted to work on our document. So for 2 years, people from different wineries and different areas, we got together to do this document. And when it was finished, we took it to some universities and institutes to get their feedback. And the first version was finally released in 2011. We were the first vineyard to be certificated in 2013. So we also looked and got inspiration from the Wines of Chile code. So Andrea was saying that it's very strict, and ours is too. And as she said, it goes from different aspects of vineyard operations and winemaking, and it also includes your staff and your community and neighbors. So it's very big. It has more than 14 chapters, and inside each chapters you have different categories, like at least 10 of them. So you have a third-party auditory, and then when you accomplish the protocol, Bodegas de Argentina grants a sustainability certificate to the producer. So since 2018, our vineyards and wineries has been certificated, and so far more than 50 certificates have been given by Bodegas de Argentina to different producers. And what is important is the impact, because now I would say that the main producers in Argentina are certificated. So we have a big volume of wine that is being done under sustainable conditions.
Mm-hmm. Right. So these certification systems both can help producers decide or determine or learn how to be more sustainable, as well as helping retailers and consumers feel confident in your sustainability commitments, right?
Yes, sure. We can put the logo in the labels after you get a certain sites of places certificated in your company. I really believe the big challenge, as Andrea said, is the consumer to understand what it means.
Right, exactly. So we have a question actually from the audience in this regard, and I'll just read it. In the past year alone, there have been numerous exposures regarding exploitive labor practices in vineyards around the world. Can you talk about how labor fits into sustainability and how we can center more conversations around the invisible people who are working in wine agriculture? So, Belen or Andrea, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I don't mind to take it. That's actually one of the reasons why we adhere to the Chilean Code of Sustainability at easy state, pushed. There's a very important channel on social responsibility, and that includes, of course, all the people who work in our vineyards, which are for us not invisible at all. They're the main driving force and the key of the quality of our wines, who begin in the pruning, in simple things, who require so much energy and love from them. And they need to be fairly treated. We need to adhere strongly to all the legislation and more. And the Code of Sustainability of Wines of Chile has that due diligence. There are public channels of denouncing if you can see any illegal or any sort of aspects in your work with the community that doesn't adhere to international standards. The code took things from many different, like a Rainforest Alliance, the ISO, of course, the international legislation, global GAP practices. So, that's one of the things when it's open and transparent, you're out there. And today it's a world where everything is communicated, quite strongly. So I think is a key point for us, more than a private certification, where things get at home dealt with in a way, and it's not good, so that's one of the aspects I'll say it's very important.
So, and what about a couple of people who would like to make a career change and work for a winery? And Heather, I think you could share your experience of how you started and how you made a change and joined Yalumba.
Sure. So, I, to be honest, I found my way into the Barossa Valley because I moved to South Australia from Queensland. And my previous career was, I was environmental and marine biologist, environmental scientist. I wandered into the Barossa Valley, saw a laboratory when I was doing some wine tasting, and thought that this looked like a great great place to work in. And so I started through our laboratory as a technician, and I was lucky enough because once I was here, I got bitten by that winemaking bug, as everyone does, and realised it was such a great company to work for and a great industry to be into. So I was lucky enough that I started studying winemaking, and then the company gave me basically a trainee program through them, and I worked my way through all aspects of the winemaking side of things, thoroughly. I've been here 21 years, so it was definitely a career change that I enjoyed, and I'd encourage anyone that is thinking about doing that is to do a vintage, because not only do you see winemaking at its best, you also see it at its worst. So I think that's really where you want the starting point and the exciting part of our industry.
When you say do a vintage, you mean volunteer to work during harvest?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So before we run out of time, we've covered, social responsibility, environmental sustainability, biodiversity, but we haven't talked about economic sustainability, right? Because as I said at the beginning, that's an important part of sustainability as well. So I'd love to get each of you to share your thoughts on how do you feel the wine industry will bounce back after COVID? I mean, there's a lot of economic insecurity right now. And so I think we'd all like to hear your thoughts on where economic sustainability will land in this new environment. So let's see. Andrea, do you want to start?
Okay. So we were talking with Charles the other day a bit what's coming up next in the future for us. We're just been 2 weeks out of lockdown here in Santa Cruz. That's a bit of the perspective. And as Heather and Belen mentioned, we had COVID through our harvest in the South Hemisphere. So it's been quite an unnerving part on the production side, but the economics and the sales, which is not my field of expertise, but we work very close with Charles, who visits the markets all the time, and it's been really hard because as we make premium wines, our wines are drink in restaurants, in hotels, and that is basically closed, and we've seen the growth in online channels and in the off trade, but it hasn't compensated the crash on the on trade, sorry, and especially the consumption. Wine is social, it brings us together. So Charles mentioned that he believes in 2024 to 5 years, 2024, we will be back to the numbers as a trade seen in 2019. So there's going to be casualties on the way. I think we need to be realistic and then really innovate a little bit what we were talking with the girls before and today in sustainability is that to be innovative, to see wine as a different thing, to empower the consumer, to have more direct interaction with the consumer. Locally, also in Chile, we are an export wine country. We definitely have to look more inside ourselves, or regionality with Brazil, Argentina. But it's a great challenge, that's for sure. And it's not going to be an easy one, but we're sure that we're going to be stronger after all this. We will be taking more care of many details that we took for granted before. In the whole picture. So hoping to look into the future with after all this shock.
Yeah. Well, Julia, what do you think? I mean, how do you see our future in terms of economic sustainability after COVID?
Well, I pretty much share Andrea's opinion. So basically, we had the same issues because, as you know, we also make premium wines, and the HoReCa channel is the one that is the most affected for sure in our workshop. So we have a huge loss in terms of sales. Also because the trend nowadays on a global level is that people is drinking entry-level price points, of course, because it's just for home, for their own consumption with no socialization. So it's totally understandable the kind of behavior that the consumer is having nowadays. Talking about future, I sincerely, I can tell you what we have seen in Italy, because we came out of the lockdown in May, and we had a kind of a normal month, June, July, and August, and now we are maybe approaching a new lockdown. Let's see what the government will say. And I can tell you that the people they were just fed up with this way of living, and as soon as they could, they came back to normality. So just to go back to restaurants, to drink, and to enjoy life, of course. So I imagine that once this pandemic is over, and I imagine it's over when we have the vaccination, I guess, not before at this, because it seems that nobody's able to handle the problem, no countries in the world. When this situation will arrive, I guess that we will go back to a normal life. What is gonna be this? I don't know. Very difficult to say. Let's hope the sooner the better, because it's really strange.
Exactly. So Heather, what do you think?
I agree with my colleagues. I think we've had to adapt. I mean, we've been fairly lucky down here in Australia, and we're fairly isolated. So in order for us to, we've sort of gone back to what we call COVID normal at the moment. And for us, it's about adapting to, because a lot of our markets are export. So it's adapting to the new way of life. So a lot more online tasting, online communication. Zoom, I think, is our friend at the moment, because it's a way of communicating with people all around the world look at this seminar as a classic example of that. And I think we're going to have to adapt to these different ways. And in a way, it's been a bit of a challenge and a bit of a success story, because people have challenged themselves. They've gone outside of their comfort zones, and of the traditional way of you had to meet face to face in order to do a wine tasting of all things. Now we're providing wine and doing it remotely. So I think we're challenging, we're learning, we're adapting, and we're growing. And I think we'll come out of COVID hopefully as a stronger industry, with more ideas and better innovation going forward.
All right. Belen, do you want to offer us some thoughts on environmental sustainability post-COVID?
Yeah, well, about economics, what we are trying is to be positive and to take the time we have now that we used not to have before because of the traveling and the visitors, maybe to innovate in new things and that were stopped. And we are not trying to push any new products in the market, but for example, I will give you an example that is a pandemic project. We had a wine that goes very well, but we knew we didn't have a nice label. So if it wasn't for the pandemic, we wouldn't be working on this. And so we have now a new label that we hope it will help us to sell more of this wine. So now, for example, we are working in our GRI report, because now the people that is involved have more time to get together to work on this. So we are trying to be positive and to take advantage that now we have more time to rebuild ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that, one advantage is that we're able to have an event like this where we bring people together from different parts of the world that we wouldn't have been, it maybe would not have been as easy in the past to have you all with us for an hour of your time. And it's really been just outstanding for us, I think, to have you. And thank you so much. And I don't know if we have any more questions from the audience. Well, a couple of people kind of want to know how you each kind of came to do what you do. We talked a bit, Heather talked some about her background, but perhaps you could share how you came to get into this role. I know, Julia, maybe you could share with us, because you started with business studies and then moved into winemaking.
So as you said, I graduated in economics and in Rome, and I first started my job in administration and finance as a normal. I mean, it was what I studied for, so it was normal for me to go in that kind of job actually in the fashion industry. But after 2 years of numbers and with banks and all of those, and a letter of credit and all of those, I was completely fed up, and I said, this is actually. I also, on the other side, I also wanted to change job and go in this, and on the other side to do something for my homeland. So when I'm originally from a town very close to Valle Reale Winery. So when I saw that Valle Reale was looking for somebody in sales, I said, I apply. Who knows if they will hire me? After 2 months, they called me and said, wanna do an interview? And they hired me. That's it. And this was back in 2012. So now it's 8 years that I'm there.
Great. And Andrea, you've been all over the place. You've been in New Zealand, in the US, in Europe. So tell us about before returning to Chile, right? So you're originally from Chile. So tell us a little bit about what's
born and bred Chilean, but a very curious one. And I love to explore and travel. So the wine world offers a unique possibility to do that. So after graduating from college, I work a couple of harvests here as a slave, as Heather was saying, in a winery. And then I applied to work for a consultant. And I work in different countries of Europe for a few years for very small producers. It was a great experience. And then I wanted to travel a little bit before coming back home. So I went to the USA and worked for a completely different winery, which was Fetzer at the time, who was on the forefront of sustainability. And that's really, when I saw such a big company putting all this, process together, was a great experience as well. And then went back to the South Hemisphere to New Zealand, where I work in 2 or 3 wineries for the harvest. I love New Zealand, it's beautiful, and I love the kiwis. I couldn't make it to Australia, sorry, but next time maybe. But it was great to see all these different wineries, family-owned, corporate, different realities, different but all with passion. You can take an experience and a lesson and learn, talk less and hear more. We're used to talk a lot, sorry, but so I took all that from them, and then found this great place in L'Apostole where I could follow, this French family, and they gave me the space to do very different things from, the technical side towards communication, and even traveling the world again on a different aspect, talking about the wines and, visiting clients, but also always, learning something else. So yeah, you need to be curious, and the wine world offers you the opportunity to feed that curiosity.
Great. Thank you all so very much. This was a very, very interesting panel, very informative, and I'm sure I speak for all of our audience. So Marilyn.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra, Andrea, Belen, Julia, and Heather, for a wonderful, insightful discussion. On behalf of all of us at Winebow Imports, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who joined us today, and to 2 in Communications, our partners in producing this event. Please look out for a survey that we'll be sending in an email. We would greatly appreciate your feedback to help shape future symposiums. Thanks again, everyone, and take care. Bye.